The palace corridors have heard centuries of whispers, schemes, betrayals, and confessions that never reached the public ear. But on this night, the silence shattered. William's voice, raw with fury, carried through the ancient walls of Windsor as he confronted Camilla over Catherine's humiliation. It wasn't just a disagreement about schedules or ceremonies. It was history threatening to repeat itself. Memories of Diana's pain loomed heavy in the air, and William, now a husband and father, made a vow he refused to break. What Camilla had done to Catherine ignited a storm so fierce, the palace itself seemed to tremble. And in that moment, one question burned. Would this family fracture beyond repair? If this story grips you as much as it gripped the palace walls, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more powerful royal moments brought to life. Share this video with friends who love history, drama, and the truth behind closed doors, because what happens in those corridors often shapes the monarchy we see on the outside. The Norfolk countryside was calm that morning, the kind of quiet that makes you believe the world is safe. Mist clung to the oak trees, and through the kitchen windows of Anmer Hall, golden light spilled onto the frosted grass. Inside, life felt almost ordinary. William stood at the kitchen island, carefully buttering toast for the children's breakfast. Catherine moved about with graceful efficiency, packing lunchboxes, adjusting ribbons, and folding sandwich wrappers with a practiced hand. It was domestic bliss, the kind of life they had fought so hard to protect from the machinery of monarchy. George's drawings decorated the fridge. Charlotte's school shoes waited by the door. Louis's boots leaned against the wall, still muddy from yesterday's play. For a moment, the future king looked less like royalty and more like any father making breakfast. But then the landline rang. Not William's mobile, not Catherine's phone buried in her handbag. The landline, a direct line that connected their home to Buckingham Palace. Calls on that line never carried good news. William froze mid-motion, the butter knife slipping from his grip and clattering against the counter. Catherine instinctively said, "I'll get it," but William was already moving, his voice low and firm. "No, I'll take it." On the other end was James Thornberry, King Charles's private secretary, a man who never called unless the matter was urgent and deeply sensitive. His tone was crisp, efficient, and tinged with apology. "Sir, there's been an incident. The Queen Consort has made certain arrangements regarding the Princess of Wales. Arrangements I believe require your immediate attention." William's jaw tightened, his voice barely above a whisper. "What kind of arrangements?" James hesitated, but finally explained. Camilla had intervened in preparations for the upcoming Commonwealth Day service. Catherine, who was scheduled to present awards and deliver a speech on education, had been quietly removed from the program. Her duties reassigned, her role erased. The words landed like thunder. Catherine's hands froze mid-motion over Charlotte's lunchbox. William's face hardened, his silence heavier than any outburst. "She's excluded Catherine from Commonwealth Day," he finally said, his voice calm, but deadly in its quiet fury. To Catherine, the wound went deeper than a public slight. For years, she had worked tirelessly, supporting causes from mental health to childhood development, often while enduring criticism and scrutiny that few others could withstand. And now, in one calculated move, Camilla had tried to erase her. But for William, it was something more. It was déjà vu. He saw flashes of his mother Diana, sidelined, diminished, pushed to the margins of an institution she had given her life to. He felt again the helplessness of being 12 years old, walking behind her coffin, vowing never to let history repeat itself. And now, here it was, circling back, threatening the woman he loved. "We're going to Windsor," William said at last, his tone sharp as steel. "And we're ending this today." Catherine nodded, her eyes betraying the weight she carried, but her posture calm, controlled. She had lived 16 years in this world, long enough to know when to hide the pain, when to show strength. By the time they stepped into the Range Rover, rain streaked across the windshield. Catherine insisted on driving. William's hands trembled with fury, and she knew better than to let anger guide the wheel. The motorway blurred past in muted shades of brown and gray, the countryside echoing the storm brewing inside them both. In the backseat lay reminders of their children. A forgotten hair ribbon, George's football magazine, Louis's half-empty packet of biscuits. Ordinary traces of a family just trying to live a normal life, now caught in extraordinary drama. William stared out of the window silent, his jaw set like stone. Finally, Catherine broke the quiet. "Tell me exactly what James said." Her husband took a deep breath. Camilla, he explained, had told others that Catherine was unavailable for Commonwealth Day, using her recent struggles with illness and the heartbreak of a miscarriage as the excuse. Private grief, twisted into a public justification to erase her. Catherine gripped the wheel tighter. "She's using the miscarriage," she said flatly. It wasn't a question. It was certainty. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the hum of tires on wet road. For Catherine, it was betrayal layered on betrayal. For William, it was unforgivable. He turned to her, his voice breaking the quiet. "She's doing to you what they did to my mother." That single sentence hung in the air, sharp and unrelenting. It wasn't just a royal scheduling conflict anymore. It was about power, legacy, and survival. Minutes later, Catherine pulled into a service station, her composure faltering. She walked to a small garden, sat on a bench, and allowed her shoulders to shake. William watched through the rain-streaked glass, torn between wanting to comfort her and knowing she needed that moment to gather herself. When she returned, her eyes were red, but her posture steady. She had transformed grief into resolve, just as she always did. She started the engine, looked straight ahead, and said only, "I'm ready, let's go face her." And so they drove on, the ancient towers of Windsor slowly rising from the mist, like watchful sentinels. The stage was set. The confrontation awaited. And the palace walls, silent for centuries, were about to tremble once more. The gates of Windsor Castle loomed against the gray afternoon sky, its ancient stones steeped in centuries of power struggles and whispered betrayals. As William and Catherine stepped from their car, the weight of history pressed down on them. Every monarch, every consort, every battle for influence seemed to linger in the cold air. But this time, the conflict wasn't hidden in shadows. It was about to erupt in broad daylight. Their footsteps echoed through the corridors, portraits of long-dead royals staring down with silent judgment. Catherine's heels clicked with deliberate rhythm, her navy dress chosen like armor, subtle but unyielding. William walked beside her, his fury wrapped in a veneer of control, every line of his posture declaring he would not be pushed aside. A footman appeared as if summoned by instinct. "Her Majesty, the Queen Consort, awaits you in the blue drawing room." William and Catherine exchanged a glance. That room was no accident. It wasn't intimate, it wasn't private. It was a stage, a calculated arena of mirrors, portraits, and grandeur designed to intimidate. Camilla had chosen her battlefield carefully. Inside, Camilla sat positioned in perfect light, her smile calibrated to project warmth with a touch of authority. "William, Catherine, how lovely to see you both." Her words floated into the air, but behind the polished tone was steel. Catherine spoke first, her voice calm but resolute. "Where I go, he goes. Where he goes, I go." The declaration shifted the energy instantly. Camilla had expected William alone, a familiar dynamic she thought she could manage. Instead, she faced a united front. William remained standing. "I understand you've made decisions about my wife's role in the Commonwealth Day service." Camilla adjusted slightly in her chair. "I merely sought to ease her burden. Given Catherine's recent challenges, it seemed kinder to reduce her commitments." The word hung heavy. Challenges. Catherine's eyes narrowed. What challenges would those be exactly? For a flicker of a moment, surprise crossed Camilla's face. Catherine rarely confronted directly, but today was different. "You've canceled engagements," Camilla said smoothly. "People talk. There are concerns about reliability." William's voice sliced through her explanation. "Concerns? What people? What concerns?" He knew. Catherine knew. The only explanation Camilla could have offered the courtiers and staff was their private grief, her miscarriage, pain known to only a handful of trusted confidants. Those cancellations were due to medical issues, Catherine replied firmly. Issues resolved. Camilla's smile faltered, but she pressed on. Perception matters. And when the Princess of Wales is less visible, questions arise. William stepped closer, his voice low but charged. Perception is shaped by the narrative told, and I want to know what narrative you've been telling about my wife. For the first time, Camilla's composure cracked. A slight tremor in her voice betrayed unease. I would never speak out of turn, but people ask questions and… William cut her off, his voice rising. Catherine has given 15 years to this family. She has raised 3 children while representing this country with dignity. She has championed causes that have changed lives. She has endured scrutiny that would have destroyed others. And you have the audacity to question her commitment? The words reverberated against the ornate walls, each syllable carrying the fury of a man haunted by his mother's erasure. Catherine rose now, her voice calm but powerful. I've given up my career, my privacy, and my right to live as an ordinary woman. I have never complained, never asked for recognition. What more do you want from me? Her question cut deeper than any accusation. For years she had endured whispers that she wasn't enough, not aristocratic enough, not royal enough. And now she demanded the truth. Camilla's mask slipped. For a moment she looked less like the poised consort and more like a cornered figure, scrambling for justification. But William pressed forward, his anger boiling into something unstoppable. How dare you, he said, his voice shaking the silence. How dare you sit in judgment of a woman who has given everything when you… His voice broke, but surged again. When you spent decades tearing down my mother, I will not watch history repeat itself, not with my wife, not with my children's mother. The room itself seemed to tense. The portraits on the walls, queens, kings, consorts of centuries past, looked almost alive in the charged atmosphere. Catherine stepped beside her husband, not to restrain him, but to stand shoulder to shoulder. William's voice thundered now, echoing down the stone halls. Catherine will attend Commonwealth Day. She will speak. She will be seen. And if you ever attempt to erase her again, I will ensure the world knows exactly who you are beneath the crown. Camilla's face drained of color. She tried to answer, but Catherine cut in with quiet strength. We don't need a pause. We need a resolution. You can stand with us as we build the future of this monarchy, or stand against us and face the consequences. For a long, heavy moment, silence reigned. Even the tick of the antique clock seemed deafening. Finally, Camilla sat back in her chair, her authority crumbling under the weight of William and Catherine's united defiance. The balance of power had shifted, and as the blue drawing room fell still, the ancient walls of Windsor seemed to tremble, not from age but from truth finally spoken aloud.